Are we live?
We are,
Am
yes.
I a poser? No, I'm not a poser because I watched the very first one. Thank you very much in theaters, and I got to experience the horror that was Tiny Tim on the big screen
Yeah,
in
I was
surround
in.
sound. I gotta
Yeah,
say, I appreciate that they kept that they brought that back at least in the newest
yeah.
one. So it's been
Welcome,
missing.
everyone. Tonight we're going to be talking about Insidious, the entire franchise. The first one, all the way through The Red Door, which is actually in the theaters today, everywhere. I guess technically it dropped yesterday for, most theaters, but the official day is today. So let us know in the
And
comments if you have already seen Insidious, The Red Door.
it spoiler warning, we will be discussing everything, so if you
Yeah,
haven't seen it, any of them, and you don't want to be spoiled, what are you doing? First of all, because they're great movies, you should have at least seen the first
first,
two by now. They've been
yeah.
out for 10 years, but we will be discussing spoilers. Not that there's really anything to spoil, I feel like.
There is. I mean,
I
with the newest
mean,
movie,
there's some
if
twists and turns, but
people
I
haven't seen it
mean,
yet and they want to, but
it's horror movies, you can always wiggle your way in and out of, you know, whatever you want to make the story fit, right?
that
I
is
mean,
true.
what has Halloween done this entire time? I mean, you'd expect me to believe Michael Myers lives in a storm drain?
For a year.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Though Halloween 5 is an amazing film. Don't let that comment make you think
It's
otherwise.
not as
But
good as Halloween 3, and you can quote me on that. So,
all right. But yeah, this franchise is probably one of the more popular ones to hit the horror scene. It's probably the last 20, 15 years at least. And it's all five movies are PG-13, so that's something to note. Um, but yeah, going back to um, the very first film, Insidious. Here we have yes PG-13. I believe this was the second or third film directed by James Wan, who directed Saw, Dead Silence, and maybe one other one. But he wanted to make Insidious along with his creative partner Lee Wainell, who also co-wrote Saw. He wrote this film, Insidious, and he wanted to make it PG-13 to show he didn't have to rely on overuse of gore and graphic violence to make a good horror movie. And I think it was very effective. On screen
the
here we
the
have
lack
one
of
of the
nips is
more
regrettable, but I mean, it is a devastatingly creepy franchise.
right.
Lots of jump
Yeah.
scares. That's how you get. That's how you get away PG-13 in a horror movie. Jump
Yeah, yeah.
scares and creepy noise. But
But yeah, I mean, Insidious, this first film, I think it does a really good job. It's introducing you to this world, which is honestly kind of like the Upside Down before the Upside Down was a thing. Um,
they scooped Stranger Things.
yeah, but the first film, focuses on the Lambert family. Patrick Wilson. I think Patrick Wilson's acting in this franchise is leaps and bounds better than his acting in the Conjuring films.
Well, yeah, because in the Conjuring films, he's Ed Warren. He's a different person who likes to groom young women to live with him and his wife. So
Mm, there
different.
you go.
This is good guy Patrick Wilson. He has to play a villain. He plays a villain in the Conjuring. So
He plays a villain in the second film too. But
okay, not on his own. He is possessed.
so
Okay.
who? So okay, which of the two films, or which of the two demons in the first film, the lady in black or the woman, the bride in
The
black,
bride in black, excuse me. She's
or
married.
the lipstick face demon? Which one is scarier to you?
You asking me?
Yeah.
I don't like the bride in black, but I definitely think the lipstick demon is the creepiest motherfucker I've seen. And it's probably one of the best recurring villains I think in any horror movie. It's really that dude always creeps you out. He's always a jump scare away from showing up. And the best part about him is that you can see him in a dark room because he got the bright red face. So they
That's
don't have to
true.
light him up. Half the
Yeah.
time he's lurking around the corner. You're like, oh, great. There's a pair of eyeballs and there's that greasy red piece of garbage. And that's what
Right.
most people say when I walk into a room. But in this case, we're talking about the lipstick demon.
That's right.
He is
And
one creepy dude.
Gold Replicant and Andy Smith both agree and say the Lipstick Demon um, is the scarier of the two.
But the
Yeah,
story
the
of the Bride
story.
in Black is creepy.
Yeah,
The origin of the Bride in Black is sketch.
yeah.
So, you know,
Where do you think this film sits amongst the new era of horror films? Like you have Terrifier that's kind of blowing up, and
man,
you got all
am
this
I a
other
hater?
stuff.
I'm not a huge Terrifier fan.
I'm not either.
I don't know really why it's blowing up other than the gratuitous violence, but I mean, I feel like you can get that anywhere. We show
Yeah.
gratuitous violence every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday here on Kings of Horror. So, I don't know. Gratuitous violence is gratuitous violence. Whatever. I do like the movies, and I know like Nate hates these movies. He
Oh,
hates.
does he?
Well, he hates
I didn't know
like
he did.
no. What don't you remember his rant on he doesn't like the horror movies that have just the generic name. Like this one's called Insidious and
Oh,
Sinister. It was like so like there are people that like I get it. You like the genre, you like the slashers, you know, it's cool. But I do like the horror movies that have a little bit of some kind of narrative. They try. I mean, these are all movies that were made for less than $16 million each, and they made over $100 million each, right? So, I mean, horror is insanely profitable and does not cost a lot of money. But they actually, at least the James Wan Blumhouse collabs, they do try to direct some kind of narrative, even if
yeah.
it falls flat in some of them. I don't know. I like the storytelling. I like the universe they've built. I think it's cool that it's gotten this far. I didn't really think it'd make it this far. I kind of thought after 2, I had honestly forgotten they made a 3 and 4. I had to go back and rewatch them. I never had seen. I think I'd seen 3 at one point, but I definitely had not seen 4, and I hadn't seen 5 obviously because it just came out yesterday.
Yeah.
But I had to, I watched 4 for the first time. I did not watch it
Mhm.
when it came out.
Yeah, I didn't either. Again, everyone, thanks for tuning into this roundtable discussion. We'll be talking until about 8 o'clock, which is when the first of our double features starts tonight, and that is Dynamic. Dynamic from Bounty Films, followed by The Attic Expeditions, starring Seth Green in a 2001, 2002 film. So don't miss those tonight.
That is actually what Seth Green was doing as Scotty before he reunited with his father, Dr. Evil, when he was thawed out cryogenically.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's funny because this has such a shock ending, something you don't expect out of the way, and we are going to be talking spoilers for all the
spoilers,
films, including Insidious: The Red Door. I know it just came out today, but we are going to be talking about it.
If you've seen the other 4, you probably have some idea what to expect from 5, though. It doesn't really. It just kind of because the chronology of how the movies have been. The first 2 happen in the present, and the 3rd and 4th happen in the past,
prequels,
leading up to the present. So the 5th one is finally a continuation. It's kind of the true chapter 3 if you were in a chronological order. It's the continuation after 2,
right
after chapter 2. So.
But yeah, so
one is a complete movie. One introduces a universe. It introduces this astral projection, this twist on astral projection, which had not really been. There's movies where you go to another dimension. There's like Poltergeist. You get sucked to another dimension, or you accidentally open a door, like Ouija board shit. Like you open something to another dimension, another realm, spirit world, blah blah blah, Ghostbusters, whatever you want to call it, Gatekeeper. But this one had the twist on it where it was astral projection, which I always liked. It's cool. Yeah. It's like an ethereal Sixth Sense kind of thing. It's pseudoscience, whatever. It's like seances. And then it took that, and the kids, you think you have a resolution, and then there's the punch in the gut at the end. It's a whole movie, and then what the hell? The last 10 minutes. The last 10 minutes are just like, what's happening here? I thought we were all good.
Yeah. But yeah, and we're horrible at introductions. I'm Patrick. This is my wife, Amanda, and that's Shelby.
Ex-husband.
Ex-husband Shelby.
Lifelong friend.
Uh-oh. Are you drinking out of a Moosehead? Moosehead, My Bloody Valentine?
I'm not sponsored by the other company that makes the real product, so I'm not giving them the
But
satisfaction.
yeah.
They are
so-
welcome to sponsor me. I have no
of course.
shame. I will drink anything if it's free and cold. That's the only two brands that matter.
That's right.
I'll even drink warm and cheap, but
So-
never hot and expensive.
What would you give Insidious out of 10? And let us know in the comments what you give the very first Insidious film out of 10.
I think it's my favorite still. I think it's one of the best ones just because it kind of introduces everything, and it's a nice clean movie. Like it you could just watch that by itself and you never come back to it, and you were still like, damn, that was a pretty good little movie. That was creepy. It had a lot of creepy jump scares. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't too cheap. I'd probably give it like a 9 out of 10. Honestly, I really liked the first one.
That's really
I thought
good.
it was cool. Like it exists on its own. Especially if you took the last 5-10 minutes out of it and you just
Yeah. I was gonna say with that last little bit, it would make me go, "Whoa, what?"
It's a good,
It's
it's
a
a
solid
good.
one.
Yeah, it's the ending where spoiler Elise gets killed, and it cuts off and it leaves you wanting more right then. And luckily, if you binge watch them, which we recently have done, it's quite the enjoyable experience.
Andy, you got to put a number to it, man. You got to commit. What's your ranking out of 10? Gold says it's a 7. I think most people's consensus, I bet it's at least a 7.
Yeah.
If you average it
What would
out,
you
it's
give
got to
it?
be a 7.
I'd give it an 8.
8.
Yeah.
It's
You'd
a
be
solid. And
hard-pressed to
considering how it's it's PG-13, it's honestly a good gateway horror film for a new horror fan or someone just tiptoeing into horror. Either it be they're just not used to the genre, or they're young and they want to get into the genre of that. And it's a great intro.
Well, it was kind of
to
peak. It was kind of peak James Wan too. That was right
Yeah.
when he was trying the other things, branching out from Saw. I mean, Saw made him uber famous,
Right.
but we were still Facebook friends with him.
I'm still Facebook friends with
Still
him.
Facebook. We were hitting him up on Facebook from time to time before even Saw was really crazy big. I mean, but like that, and then Sinister is not far behind the first Insidious, and that's
No.
another. It's got the same kind of fingerprints all over it. And,
Well, Jason Blum from Blumhouse has said he wants. This was a couple years back, so I don't know if it's still in the cards, but he wanted to do some type of crossover film of Insidious and.
I mean, who says they don't live in the same universe? I mean, it's all, as you see through these movies, and we're going to start talking about number 2, is like there's more than one demon. Lipstick Face Demon seems to be the head honcho of this little sector of the astral projection cronies, but we've had, according to my notes, there are 1, 2, 3, there's 4. There's 4 that we've encountered so far that have actual like names.
In the first one, or is this
What,
counting
in the
two?
series? In the series, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you've got
Yeah.
you got Lipstick Face, you got the Bride in Black, you have Key Face,
Mm-hmm.
and you have
the guy who can't breathe.
The man who can't breathe. The man who can't breathe.
Yeah.
So like you've got 4
Yeah.
that are like at least mini bosses, right?
Yeah.
So
Mini
not
bosses.
to mention the assorted horrors of the other body jumpers and the
The
corpses that
other
are, 'cause they're all
entities.
the first. I mean, the
Um,
first movie establishes that like once you open the door, everybody can hear you. All the
Yeah.
dead can hear you when you call out. It's not just you and your relatives. So like they're clamoring to get into a living body to live again. I thought that was horrifying. Like that's a pretty good explanation of like the the other dimension. They're dead and they want to come back to life. That's what they're trying to do. You open a door, they're all going to pour out like zombies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the second one takes place right after chapter 1. The first one, chapter 1.
You can call it chapter 1 now.
You
They
can,
have
yeah.
chapter
You
numbers. It was just Insidious when it came out.
Yeah. So this one, follows the Lamberts after the aftermath of the first one. Elise is dead. Josh is possessed.
And he's like
And-
MIA, isn't he? Or is he's still on the scene when they're investigating, right?
Yeah. He's there. It kind of picks up like right from that moment at the end of the first one, but
So I remember they were like, "Oh, if we find your fingerprints, he's gonna be in trouble." I'm like, "Well, it's his house, so his fingerprints are gonna be everywhere, bro."
But yeah, the second one, like you mentioned earlier, Shelby, it dives more into the Bride in Black's backstory, how he came to be, what his demons were, what he had to deal with.
Well, it's kind of a prequel and a part of it where it goes
Sort of,
into
yeah.
Josh's childhood. It's like really, it hasn't progressed forward in time until the last movie. If you really, like half of 2 is dedicated to Josh's childhood.
Sort of, yeah.
To a certain degree, and why he's
and this film does an excellent job, I think, of doing something that lots of horror franchises don't do, and it plays with time. It plays with explanations on other things that happen. Like in the first one, the Lamberts, their alarm system goes off, the door's wide open, he shuts it, and you find out in the second one that it's is that Jacquees, Shelby, from the chat? Is that Jacquees Lockett?
J-Lock? No, where?
On Twitch. I don't know.
Oh, I'm not on Twitch.
Well, I'm
You're
on
looking at the restream.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be. Jock, if that's you, welcome.
I don't think it is, but I don't know who that is. But I'm not envious of his beard at all, though. Oh, you'll never see my... You'll never see me with a beard like that.
Hater ass. Okay. All right. You just be hurtful now to me to make a point.
But yeah, this is a really good job at, for instance, going back to the shared scenes from previous films. It does a good job at. It's a good job at.
I gotta get into this. I can log into Restream too simultaneously, can I?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to look at it on Twitch and I'm not signed in, so.
But anyways, this series is a good job at, because then it shows that Josh is actually still in the further, and he is the one who caused the door to open in the first film. It's little moments like that.
It's like layers. Like it's almost like the layers, right?
Yeah.
Each exactly. At least 1, 2, and 5 kind of happen like simultaneously in certain threads, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Like once you see it in its entirety, you can almost see like where it's a movie happening in another dimension at the same time, like where they all interfere with each other. The weird movements, the weird shadows, the interference. Like you get to see the hidden part from the previous movie and the next movie. Essentially, It seems to be like one of the tropes they're keeping, which is cool. It's a cool dynamic. They do it well. It's almost like Tenet if it worked.
Yeah. It kind of has some threads of Interstellar too, with kind of those sharing of the moments and stuff like that. But yeah, Insidious 2, I think was again another solid one. It allows Patrick Wilson to act a little bit more, dive into some areas that are very much dark for him. He gets to play a violent person trying to kill.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a monster too.
Yeah.
And I think the best part too is, I mean, they have the Bride in Black's origin, and it's like he's actually somebody who has a real connection to Josh. Yeah. That was somebody he interacted with in the real world when the Bride in Black was a real person, because his mom was like a nurse at the hospital, and he got attacked by that patient at the hospital, and. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
But no, the second one, I felt like it did a really good job at and Elise still has a presence. She's there in the further. Specs and Tucker, again, start to add more and more comedic moments in the series. Specs is played by Lee Wainell, who's the writer of the series, and then the other one was in, what show was he in? Tucker, the other one of the two guys, the bigger one.
He's the organic. He's the organic mechanic in Fury Road.
I did see that.
So I mean, because Lee's like Australian.
Yeah.
So So I mean, their guys have got some chops. I mean, and Patrick Wilson's obviously become a bona fide star over the past 15 years.
Lee Whannell was one of the two people trapped in the bathroom in the first Saw. I mean, I thought he did really good acting in that.
It's the James Wan stable. It runs deep. Those
James
horses
Wan,
got legs.
But but Insidious 2, I give Insidious 2 a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10 probably. I don't like it. I think the first one's just a little bit more of a good film, but this one, it does dive in more into the lore, the world building. I don't know. You know what? Let's give it 8.5 for me probably.
I like it. I don't like it as much as the first one because I don't super love how much time they spend on the Bride in Black for how not super important he is, other than for corrupting. I mean, he haunted Josh. It was cool how he shows up in the photos. Like that layer gets revealed, but I didn't really need to know why the Bride in Black was abused by his crazy controlling mom trying to make him to be a girl. Like that was weird. You could have cut that 10 minutes out and not lost anything. I mean, it could have just been a creepy dude that likes to haunt people, because most people, if they have the power, if they were powerless in real life and then they realize when they're dead they can become a piece of garbage and haunt people and hurt them, then they probably would if they had the opportunity, right? You know, sometimes like people are pieces of garbage. I feel like souls are just garbage and they become demons, right? I don't know. I think they tried a little too hard to make him to give it dimensions and it didn't really need, because at the end of the day he's a demon now. Does it matter if he was a real human? It was cool that like they interacted, so that was all they needed to have.
I mean, the thing is, it's you know, and it's credit to Juan and Lee for writing a good story, you know, and getting the pacing down, because like you said, it wasn't needed, but it's not like it was bogged down with.
I almost feel like that part may have been added in there to try to give it a spin-off of its own thing. Like the Bride in Black was going to become like the La Llorona or whatever, like the urban legend. I thought we were going to make like the Nun movies. They were going to make a Bride in Black spin-off of. That's what I really don't want to see happen, because he wasn't that compelling. If you want to do a spin-off, give me the Lipstick Demon.
I would say, isn't the Bride in Black also the one that was after release anyway? So, I mean, so the Bride in Black
he's like the chaser.
In like the majority.
He is, but he's just like the Frankenstein's monster, you know, lumbering in the background, always chasing you, never catching you until he possesses you, right? I don't know. Where's he getting his orders from?
I don't know, because he possessed
Josh,
and then he also
he killed Elise. He got what he wanted, but he got that in the first movie, and it took him 30 years to pull it off. So, I mean, is he really that good of a demon? I don't know.
So, let us know what you think of what you rate Insidious Chapter 2, 1 out of 10.
I'd give it a 7.
Make sure you hit the like button as well on the video if you're enjoying this in-depth-ish conversation on the series. Now, moving on to Insidious Chapter 3. This one, this was the first one that was different in a lot of ways for the series.
Dermot Mulroney.
Dermot Mulroney, and this actually does a really good job acting in this, and he didn't really act that much in, or as well in Scream 6. But yeah, he's in this. He plays the father of our character who meets Elise, and this is technically a prequel to.
Hung Fao's got the jokes.
There you go.
It's actually a Johnny Cash origin story.
There you go. I like it. But yeah, so this is a prequel, and it takes place a couple of years, I think 3 years before the Lambert case.
Yeah, it's not like a super rewind. Yeah, it's like very close. It's like Elisa's semi-retired, and this kind of brings her back out of her retirement, her first retirement.
And Lynn Shay does an excellent job playing Elise. And the more and more she plays Elise, the more she gets into the role better, and you get more info on her background and more. Because honestly, you don't get a whole lot on her in the first one or the second one. It's
Mm-mm.
this one, the third
She
one that you
shows up. I
start to
mean, there's
get.
that obvious connection where she helped Josh when he's a kid, and they talk about that in part 2.
Yeah,
But in the first one, they're like, "Who the hell are these people?" They just call them out of the phone book. Like, what the mom's like, "Oh, I'll call somebody from your past," but Josh doesn't know because he's been
hypnotized. Yeah,
hypnotized, and the memories are repressed. But the third one, like, it is the Insidious franchise, really is an Elise story until really the latest one. But she still has an appearance of some sort in it.
Mm-hmm.
But Elise is the most important character in the thing. This is all her fault to some degree, and it's partly her mess to clean up to some degree.
Sure.
So,
but no, I thought the villain in this one, the man who can't breathe, or the wheezy man, whatever his name was, I felt like he was a good creepy villain.
He was creepy,
but the jump scares were really effective in this one, especially the scene in the window.
He was kind of like an X-Files villain to me. Like he was kind of like the creature feature monster of the week. He was definitely the weakest out of all of them we've seen so far. Like as far as he's not that powerful.
Yeah.
He just, but his power is evil. He likes to get people to kill themselves, and then he has them as pets. Like that was creepy.
Yeah.
It was creepy, but like it was. I liked how he had more physical markers of his presence than the other two. He left those
tar
footprints. That was cool. Like it's obviously some guy that was like a lifelong smoker or something is what they're trying to like imply.
Yeah.
But like that was cool. How he would leave the tarry footsteps and like everybody could see those, even the skeptical people. Like, what the hell is that? Like he was causing real damage in the real world, which I guess made him. So honestly, if he was that powerful, then why was he ultimately that weak? If he was leaving manifestations in the real world, because it takes a lot of energy.
True, yeah.
It's kind of disappointing that he doesn't.
Or maybe it's his commentary on smoking and saying that tar is just that bad, and it just transcends realms.
Listen, kids, if you smoke now, you'll be able to turn into a demon and have other people's souls as pets. So honestly, it sounds like an incentive. I don't know why Marlboro's not running with that. That's pretty good. Why worry about what Joe Camel can give you today when you can be Joe Campbell tomorrow? Right? I mean, come on. That's just marketing 101.
But this is also how we get first introduced to Tucker and Specs.
You get the origin of the company. I like that.
Yeah. How they come to be. That's awesome.
And they get certain things that are noticed or talked about in 3 and 4, which is the last key, get kind of revealed, like how they dress, and also going back to Elise in chapter 3, has really good backstory into Elise's husband and how he killed himself, and why she's so doom and gloom at the beginning of chapter 3, which is the earliest. So far,
it's the earliest. Well, I mean, it actually happens, the whole thing, because in 4 it has a prequel part, but it's not. It's a flashback. Yeah. It's not like an actual continuation of it. It doesn't completely take place in that era. This is like the earliest that we have of an adult Elise and doing why she was out of the game. Yeah. This is the case that gets her back into trying to help people, and then turns out she wasn't that far removed from what she left in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there's obviously a commentary on like the suicide. Like every single death in this was like a suicide death, or it was like a weakened person who was killed. Like he obviously killed the neighbor with dementia too. Like she was talking about seeing the man who can't breathe. You thought she was crazy, and everything she was talking about was she sees the ghost too, and the ghost is like sapping their spirit until he can take them. Yeah. And I think the other ghost was like another person that lived in that apartment. Yeah. Like it was like, so he was like a regional ghost. He wasn't like really branching out anywhere. He's kind of owned that block, I guess, and he was building a gang. So weird. It's creepy, but it was kind of, this one fell a little flat to me. Just I like the Elise story. I liked fleshing out Elise's thing, and like and Tucker and Specs getting their story established, and like why they're together, how they met. But, ultimately, Dermot Mulroney and family are pretty forgettable. Like, we don't care I'm not invested in them. Like, I don't really care about them like I care about the Lamberts. Sorry. So they kind of feel like a delivery to just establish that Elise is solving crimes with the gang, like
I will
Scooby-Doo
say
style.
one of the scenes in that film, I think it got to you too, was when she's on her legs and with the cast on her
And
legs.
she
Where
steps on
she
the cast
smashes
pieces.
the cast off
smashing
her leg.
Yeah, that's pretty horrifying.
Oh,
And then when she
That was
walks, you
horrifying.
hear the bones crack.
Yeah,
looks
that was
rough.
horrifying. And then magically, she suffers no ill effects from that. Like being
Right.
possessed by a
Like,
Like it's
demon.
that.
going through.
Yeah, and it's like so
Her
being possessed by a
legs.
demon heals your body, and then there's no repercussions when it leaves. So I don't know.
She's out
The
running a
Exorcist,
marathon the next weekend.
the Exorcist would like to have a word with you. They're all covered in blood and piss and vomit, and it's like people falling down stairs and out windows. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about the whole possession healing you magically, because if that was the case, then I think people like want to get possessed more often, right? If it's like
Yeah.
a magical
Yeah,
cure to all your,
If it's
Yeah,
if
sure.
it's a clean slate.
yeah, let the demon take my body over for 12 hours. Yeah, I killed like 90 kids. Cool, whatever. Do my legs work? Good. All right, fair trade. I don't know. That was kind of weird. You know, that's one of those things that obviously they didn't care about when they wrote it in, because it was horrifying. But
Yeah.
you know,
Oh my gosh.
again, I don't care. I forgot their name. I forgot the name of the family in that. It's called
Can't tell you.
Dermot's new fam.
Difference
I
in
know
thing.
why you're screaming. It's because you're a single father now. Like I just don't. I don't care about the kids. I don't care about the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit of closure with getting to see the mom, but I mean, really, the third chapter was a vehicle to explain Elise's beginning as
Yeah.
and it was some more further explanation. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they really hit home the point where if you open the door, everybody can hear you. You're
Yeah.
not
And
just
that's
calling
kind
who you
of-
want to call.
And that's kind of where they bring up that's I don't know. I think that's the one where she names it the further, and she starts
Yeah.
calling it that, and that's kind of where
It's
leads
established,
to.
yeah.
yeah.
And Specs has to write it down. So, like, I think the other cool thing about this one was I had it and I lost it. I mean, at the end, when she thinks she's talking to her husband or seeing her husband, and the lipstick faced demon
Oh,
is
yeah.
right there
hanging out
behind
the door.
her. The dog
Yeah.
is barking at it, and she's looking the wrong direction.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, okay, so this motherfucker has been pulling the strings for a while, right? He's been there.
I don't know if it's that
he's
or
been
if it's just
hanging
them
out.
trying to do a little jump scare to end it. But
I don't know. I mean, he's been present in every single one so far we've discussed. You know, and this one's a
Yeah.
prequel. So he shows up.
yeah.
He shows up. So
But
yeah, 3. What would you give 3 out of 10? Chapter 3.
Maybe a 7 for me.
that's so close. I think 7 too. Yeah, I liked it, but it's I don't. And it could just be the change, but that the focus is shifting so much from the Lambert family to
I think prequels are hard.
Elise, which isn't a bad thing, but it takes some getting used to.
It's much slower paced to begin. Like, you know, the first one starts out slow and it's all gas, no brakes through 2. Because 2 picks up immediately from the first one where it was mid cliffhanger.
Right.
So it's definitely slower. I don't feel like they wasted as much time in this one, but like I said, I don't really care about the family that's being haunted in this as much. I care about learning more about the further and how it's connecting to everything. But I'd probably give this one like a 6.5 or 7. Like it's probably my least favorite in the franchise, but it's still watchable. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of 4 either, but it has its moments. I'm not hating on it. It's definitely respectable. There's not a huge drop off in this franchise, at least so far. I think it's been pretty consistent. But
and then we progress a little bit further into the timeline. Still a prequel to the first Insidious film. We have the 4th film in the franchise, Insidious: The Last Key, which is another prequel, and it's another Elise-oriented story.
Gives more of her backstory.
Right,
and this was one that I had actually forgotten they even made. This was I had seen 3 and I had to rewatch it, but I did when I rewatched it I remembered 3. I remembered parts of 3, like the tar footsteps and like the smoking man, you know. in the vents, crawling in the vents. Like
Yeah.
that would stuck with me. But yeah, The Last Key I had not seen until I
Yeah.
rewatched it.
Mhm.
I had not watched this one at all. I
Yeah.
just forgot that they kept making Insidious movies after 2018.
Yeah. And like Amanda said, it delves back into Elise's childhood, how she was brought up, what she experienced, her mother's death, how her father was, that she had a brother and left with their dad. And then it picks up just shortly before the first Insidious film. And as far as the story goes, I think it's a stronger overall story than the third one.
I think it has a better narrative. I don't necessarily. Again, it's like, okay, great. Her dad was a crazy, abusive monster. And it's like, I don't really understand. So, the whole mechanism of this one is it introduces the red door.
Yeah.
The door is established in Elise's timeline. She actually opens it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the big bad is the key face.
Yeah.
And
it even shows, like, as she's going through her opening doors to kind of, whenever she's trying to get back, she's opening different doors. And it even brings up that she wants to be used to open doors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is she ultimately a puppet for the demons to get into the real world? Right? So, like, I like the implications of this one. I feel like some of the real world events in this one kind of didn't. It's like the mechanism to go back to her childhood home is that there's a new guy that's living there and is also kidnapping and murdering people in his basement, just like her dad was apparently doing. And then the kid that she saw in the basement was actually at one point a real person who could have been saved, and she failed to save them. She ran away from home.
Yeah.
Like, it was some weird stuff. They're building these horrible monsters in the real world, but I don't know if you necessarily have to do all that because they're demons and they may not even be humans. They may not have been human to begin with. Like, I don't know if the lipstick face guy is going to end up being a human. Mm-hmm. I think it's just going to be a demon for demon's sake. There's evil spirits, right? I mean, it's established. You can just be an evil entity that never had a mortal existence. You're just a monster. You feed off of negativity and violence and hurting and stealing. So I don't know.
That's actually something and going back to, like, the second one, whenever Josh is possessed and, like, his body, like, starts to decay.
Decaying.
Because, so it's like
you can't host
try
it,
to come
right?
back. I mean, is it going to actually be back?
I think that the only reason it was decaying is because Josh's soul was still alive, right? I think they have to sever that connect because the Lamberts have the astral projection power. They can be both alive and dead at the same time. It'd been a normal person that the demon would have been able to live in that body, I bet, longer than they could have. But I mean, you still got to think, like, what's the lifespan? There's a reason why they're always looking for new bodies, right? They must not last that long.
Yeah, maybe.
Or they just go out and commit a bunch of murders and get put in prison again. And they're like, okay, I'm done with this body. I'm leaving again, and I need to start a new body,
next,
start a new life, next, please. So I don't know. I think that mechanism was interesting, and the key face is absolutely horrifying. He's a horrifying villain.
It's pretty.
The metaphors of the spiritual world in the door. I've always liked that about this. They do hammer that in, but the secret room in the basement was kind of hokey. I mean, it didn't have to literally be a room in the basement that also was the metaphorical door to the spirit world. That seems a little cheesy. Again, it seemed like it was like looking for an out for spinoffs somewhere. At some level, like, I mean, why do we get invested in Ted? Why does Ted call? Where I guess they're based in Southern California, so I guess it's theoretically possible to get a call from New Mexico for paranormal services, but like, when there wasn't somebody closer than SoCal to get your home checked out, like. So I guess, but Ted was to a degree possessed. So I guess the demons knew they could call. They were using him to call to get Elise to show her
specifically. So,
but it's like one of those things. Like it's very circular. They could have made it a little bit simpler. It's not high art.
It's not high art.
It's not like Curtains. It is a horror movie. It's not high art like Curtains, but it's cool. It's cool. I'm not hating. I think it has a better story. I think it has a better story than 3, but it has more going on than 3. 3 just kind of establishes why Elise quit and why she's back, because she realizes there's a whole hell of a lot of mess. And then 4 kind of gives you the insight on why she initially was going to quit. Before her husband committed suicide, she had a terrible experience with the supernatural.
Yeah.
Like, she tried to repress that, but she
And
couldn't run away from it.
And I think, I don't know, I think this one, towards the end of it, after they defeated the key demon, they're walking back and they're looking at the different doors, and she opens one red door, and turns out that was the noise that
Yeah.
You're talking about
So
where
you got
Dalton
those
Yeah,
layers.
Dalton.
Yeah, or Dalton fell off.
It's the layers
Yeah.
on that dimension.
And
That's cool. They showed a lot more of those scenes, and that's
Yeah.
why I
yeah,
like
that
4
was
more.
really cool.
yeah,
I think I like 4 more than
But-
3 because it did that.
yeah,
It
yeah,
tied
me
it more
too.
into the present timeline.
And you find out basically that because at least opens it, looks in, and then she walks off. She never shuts that door, and basically it alludes, at least to me and to I think you too.
Yeah.
It alludes to the fact that at least left that door open, which caused the lipstick demon to come through and start to
Kind of go after
Be
Dalton.
attached to Dalton.
We all know that the lipstick demon likes him young.
But yeah, so Insidious: Last Key, I'll give it a 7.5. I mean, it's
Yeah.
still really solid.
Yeah.
I'd give it, if I'm giving a 6 out to 3, I'd give 4 a 7.
Yeah.
It's not. The prequels are. It's a different pace. I don't hate them, and I think if they came first, we wouldn't have gotten any more Insidious. So they have their place in the timeline. I get why you do that. You got to pull the George Lucas.
They're
You gotta drop 'em
excellent
in the meat of the story.
supplemental. It just adds.
They're
and
just not as
builds
good on
these
their
characters
own.
to
You
make
you have to do it.
like these characters more, to like at least more, to like Specs and Tucker together, to like them, and by The Last Key, Specs and Tucker and Elise to some degree are the comedic relief of the series.
And I mean, honestly, that was one of my favorite parts of the very first one, was the dark comedy aspect of the paranormal investigators. One of my favorite scenes in the very first one is when he's going through the little, the Spectrovision or whatever, and he's just cycling through the slides, and there's the 2-headed girl standing next to the grandfather clock, and he just kind of puts the thing down, and the camera goes back. And it's an empty hallway the entire time. And he's like,
Yes.
okay, something bad's happening here. And he's kind of, his face is just like deadpan. He's like, that shouldn't be there. So I like they've always been funny, but they really do bring having the scientific instruments helps make it creepier, because they catch.
Yeah.
They do have some evidence of these things happening.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So yeah, I would give 4 is like a 7, maybe a 7.5. I like it more than 3, just because of the layering of the dimensions. It really hits home that everything is happening both simultaneously and in its own
Separate.
time,
Yeah.
which is cool. I think it's a nice way to do multidimensionality without having to make 900 movies. Looking at you, Marvel. Not everything needs an hour and a half to explain. 2 hours.
And this brings us to the latest Insidious film, Insidious: The Red Door. And again, we are going to be talking spoilers. It just came out today.
Just came out.
So again, if you don't want to hear about spoilers about the film,
Come
Go
back in
away
14 minutes. We'll be premiering movies. So
yes, yeah,
movies will
exactly.
start in 14 minutes. But we were going to talk about 5.
Yeah, and then we're going to give our final rankings, and then we'll say bye.
So, and the consensus seems to be in the chat that chapter 4 is about a 7. So, I mean, I think I think if you're an Insidious fan, you kind of know where these lay. They're very even. They're very consistent. They're at this point, they know what they're working with, and we know what to kind of expect. And yeah, it hasn't been a clunker yet. Yet. So yeah, the Red Door. It's
The
come
Red
to
Door.
this. They quit calling them chapters. It's called the Red Door.
And this one takes place, refocuses on the Lambert family.
9 years later.
9 years later, and Dalton's going to college. Lots happened. Again, spoilers.
They're
Josh's
split up.
wife,
Josh and
they're divorced.
what's her name?
Don't know.
It starts with Renee. Renee is
Yeah, that
Sounds
sounds right.
I'm bad
Renee?
at names, so I don't know.
But it's spelled weird. It's like RN RENEI or something. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So so they're split up. I'm guessing because he straight up snapped a woman's neck in half and then tried to kill the rest of the family, and that's bound to leave a scar on a family,
Well,
even if you're possessed by a demon.
she says why they get divorced later on. But this film again picks up the Lamberts 10 years later. Josh's mom has passed away.
Lorraine.
Dalton doesn't really like his dad. They have a rift in their
Tense relationship.
in their
Bro, he
relationship.
pulled his teeth out in the bathroom. Would you like your father if he was putting all of his dead teeth on the countertop?
I don't know.
But yeah, this movie is by far, to me, this is the first one in the series, by the way, that was not written by Lee Wainell.
Mm-hmm.
He helped develop the story with who, I can't think of his name, he's the one who wrote the film. It is, of all of them, it's the one that's paced the worst. It's the worst paced film.
Definitely the worst pace. I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
Because you spend lots of time.
Scott Teems is the writer.
Yeah. He also did. He helped write. He might have written it himself. The Firestarter remake that came out a year or two ago, and something else that didn't get great reviews.
Halloween Kills.
Yeah.
Halloween Kills. Red flag.
Yeah.
But
but yeah, so you spend lots of time, lots of big chunks of this movie. You spend it with Dalton at his college, and he's getting used to his college life, and he's an art student, and he is with this really intense teacher.
Unintentionally getting hypnotized.
Yeah, she does. She likes to try to relax the students. Does a little countdown to get them to connect to what they're painting, and this basically starts to crack open the memories a little bit for Dalton, and in turn Josh as well. He has experienced fogginess over the past few years and starts to go get tests done to see what's wrong with him.
Can I say that I like how they've taken the natural age progression of this and made it part of the movie? Like, it's the same actors reprising the roles in the future.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
That's
a cool way to do it.
Yeah.
I thought that was at least
really cool.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
That we've got the continuity. Everybody's still, the original players are still in the game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that lends a lot of credibility to the whole series. I think that they've reused the people they can reuse when they can, as much as they can. So,
I spent, and we only have about 10 minutes left before our double feature starts, but I was talking to you all day long about ways to make this film a better movie, to connect overall with the franchise in better ways. The lipstick face demon is in it. He's the one that's after Dalton, and he literally has less than, I'd say at the most 1 minute of screen time.
It's like it's very brief. I was really disappointed he doesn't play a bigger role, at least on screen. And I still think he's pulling. Remember in the first one, he's kind of a marionette guy. I mean,
but
his workshop.
This is billed as the last movie, the last Insidious film, and it underdelivered, and it was very anticlimactic too.
Well, there's a few things that I was hoping to see that I guess I just didn't like. Mm-hmm. Even in the second one, it kind of leaves an open ending a little bit with Elise, like the little girl going, "Why is she here?" And that never gets kind of explained at all. And then, like with the door, I mean, even in this, there's that message, "Close the door," but. And to me, I was like, thinking, how Elise left that door open.
Yep, in the last one.
And that doesn't really get.
Yeah, is Elise gonna help? And she doesn't. She doesn't help. No, it's a message from the dead.
Backstory,
but she doesn't help him any further.
Like was kind of pointless as well.
Josh's whole story with his dad. His dad starts appearing to him now for some reason.
And it's like we knew it's in the dad's side of the family. They have astral projection. They've established that since the first movie. Like we know that. Like we didn't need the extra backstory with Josh's dad, in the mix.
And the good thing to tell about a certain character story element is if you take that out of the movie, will you taking that out affect the plot at all? No, it does not in this case.
No. It's like it's
his dad was shoehorned in, and this is.
I mean, his mom could have been the one.
Yes.
You know, the
His
one
mom
that
just died.
And
That make more sense for
Lorraine
her.
has played a very large role in the previous
Yeah.
films. It
Yeah,
would have made
yeah.
more sense. Instead, they slapped the dad in there because they've not talked about him very much since.
Yeah.
Other than he had the gift or he had the curse, and we tried to coach Josh out of it when he was a kid because he'd go walking in his sleep or whatever they called it in the first one on the astral projection.
It's just they do a really. The last 15-20 minutes, it gets zoomed through. I mean, it's very anticlimactic. It's very rushed.
It's a pacing problem. It spent too much time on the wrong things, and it spent too little time on the things we wanted to see. And if it's truly the last entry, which I have a hard time believing just on how it's been put together, I don't know. I think what they're trying to say, I think it's the last we see of the grown-up Lamberts. I think we might see Dalton, but I don't think we see Renee, and we don't see Josh again. I think it's now, and we may not see Elise and Specs and Tucker again.
Which, by the way, their
inclusion
inclusion in this film is
also shoehorned in.
It's shoehorned in, but because it's almost just like, hey, we know you want these guys, but it's all
we're not going to put them in there.
No,
except this new YouTube video.
They were kind of my favorite.
They could have put us in the movie at that point. I mean, come on, we play just as big of a role as they did at that point. So. It doesn't feel like a true conclusion, and they seal.
If you want to see me and Shelby reenact certain Specs and Tucker scenes to see how similar we are to them, let us know in the comments, and we will do that for you.
But I think that the best part that this movie did was to establish that Josh wasn't strong enough. Josh is in the best position to close this door. He's stronger than Dalton in his powers.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh fails to shut the door. Right. He holds it shut, and Dalton has to paint over it, which I don't think is the same. The door's not locked. It's
it's not closed.
Covered up
it's just covered up.
It's
covered up.
Yeah.
You just hid the problem. You didn't solve it, right?
And I didn't know this.
That's how
I didn't know the show.
There's the after credit scene. There's an after credit scene.
There's an after credit scene,
and the light flickers, implying that they can still find it. Well, the doors. I'm thinking like Monsters Inc. logic here.
Yeah.
Right? If they had cut the power to the door, the demons still see the door, but they open it up and there's nothing there, right? It's gone.
Yeah.
The portal's gone. But if you just slap some duct tape over the door, they can open the door. They just can't break through the duct tape.
Yeah.
So what's happened is the door still has power, and they're going to find a way to break through again.
Andy Smith says, yes, do it. So Yumi got to reenact some Specs and Tucker scenes.
There's no way this is the last one. I think it's just the last one we see Patrick Wilson and crew.
Which this was Patrick Wilson's directorial debut as well.
So, I mean, I get it. It's been a lot of movies. They've done a lot with it. So maybe it's time to retire those characters. But I can see where Josh has a family. Maybe this goes another 10 years in the future. They establish he has that girlfriend in college. Like maybe it's
Dalton,
Josh. Yeah. Sorry, Dalton having kids and Dalton's children have the power, right? So obviously the demon's not taken care of. And there's a spinoff.
Yeah, it's just
there's a new spinoff.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that.
So it's called Threads. It's got Kumail Nanjiani in it. So I don't know. Is it going to be literally tied? I think they're playing that bullshit game right now of, it's not really going to tie into the main.
I'd be happy with just more Elise, Tucker, and Specs adventures.
So maybe that's what it's going to be, and that'd be cool. But I have a hard time believing that the lipstick face demon's done, especially since they gave him a time.
If they're going to do that, then they need to make it better, because this movie it's not a terrible movie at all, but given the track record of these films, especially the last two that probably weren't as best as the first two, but those still being really good installments, solid ones.
This one seemed more of a cash grab than storytelling.
It did, yes.
This one is a movie that you could also watch on its own and not really understand that it's tied to other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. They do enough references, and
I get it. But maybe it's a soft reset of the franchise so they can attract new viewers. It's been 10 years. It's been 12 years since the first one. Gen Z doesn't know what Insidious is. So I mean, maybe it's trying to reestablish people in that PG-13. Because think about it, the PG-13 horror fan is aging out, and they go straight to R. They go to They become the kings of horror. Right. We're not watching PG-13 movies anymore. We show the nips sometimes, age restricted. So So I would give this one. I still think it's better than 3, but marginally, just because I like I like how it continues the present timeline, even though they don't give me everything I want. I don't really want any more prequels. I'd like to see more continuation of the timeline. It's like this one's like a 6.5 for me.
I give
It's
this
marginally better than 3, but not much.
man. I give this one either a 4.5 or a 5. This one it's middle of the road for me, and a lot of it underwhelmed. I've been complaining all day about it. So, what do you give it?
Probably
It's not
a
what I
6.
wanted.
6.
It's my
It's
least
not what I
favorite.
No.
Yeah, it's not what I wanted. There's so many different ways it could have wrapped things up. I think a little better, but
I don't
mean,
like
have
living
at
in the past.
least
Yeah.
meet Josh in the further, and
Why did
not
you
her
see her?
dad. And
I mean,
not,
that was just. I
Why
mean,
didn't
come
he just
on.
see her,
There's
like,
missed.
just
There's missed opportunities. I think
yeah, that's
it kind of stinks to me. Like they had some revisions in the script and they just didn't really
I don't
do
know.
a final read through or
Yeah.
something. It's like you could see where somebody's trying to push it at an angle and then it kind of changes directions, goes a different way. It was like missed opportunities. But
Yeah.
maybe those are openings for other stories to be told. I don't know. I'm going to
Maybe.
give it the benefit of the doubt. This is not like this is the third movie and they completely fell flat in their face. This is number 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
I
number
mean,
5.
that's true. That's
this
true.
is true.
And 3 was kind of meh, but it's worked out since 3. Like I said, I don't love 3, but it got us where we are now. So it's progressed the story. You don't really appreciate what's happened until you see how they've built up to it. So I don't know.
All right, we got less than 2 minutes.
We'll see.
Quickly, what's
So-
your order? 1 through 5.
1, and then 2, and then 4, and then 5, and then 3.
Okay. What about you?
Oh gosh.
I'll go. 1, 3, 2, 4. No, 1, 4, 2, 3, 5.
Mine is probably 1, 2, 4, 3, 5.
Okay. And on that, we will leave you. Go check out Insidious the Red Door. Comment on the video later on if you liked it or not. Enjoy Dynamic and then the Attic Expeditions tonight on
Maybe
Kings
if
of
you're a
Horror.
patron, we can do a live commentary for Insidious if you vote for it.
Yeah, there you go.